I don't remember how it started. The idea, maybe, had always been in the background, a hum behind every cracked screen and argument at the dinner table. Or perhaps it was born the night the lights went out in our apartment, the blackout stretching for hours as I soldered components onto my homemade circuit board by candlelight, convinced that if I could just make this model work, someone would finally listen. But others remembered exactly how it started, because they made sure I could never forget. It was my cousin Anna's birthday, late spring, the sun already melting into the river by the time everyone gathered in my uncle's courtyard. There were grilled sardines, plastic chairs, the usual shuffle of cards. I waited for the moment for the wine to loosen tongues and make the suggestion less absurd, when I could finally tell them about my machine learning model that could translate fado lyrics into flawless English, keeping the same pain in Amalia's voice but carrying it across the world. I thought stupidly that they would be proud of me, that Lisbon could give her music to the world through my code. Instead, Anna laughed, wine spraying from her nose. Who cares about English? If they want to understand, they can bloody learn Portuguese, someone snorted. My uncle waved a skewer, the charred fish drooping. We need real jobs in this family, Teresa, not more of your nonsense. They laughed so loudly that people on the tram passing Rua da Saudade looked over, squinting up at us. My cheeks pulsed, but I tried to explain how machine learning worked, how data could make bridges, that AI wasn't some Silicon Valley fantasy, but already changing things here in Lisbon, under our noses. What I didn't know was that Anna had been filming, that when I stumbled over words, algorithms, cultural context, neural nets, she zoomed in on my face, that when I managed to say something halfway convincing, her boyfriend mocked my accent. Hamming up some robotic monotone about Portuguese Alexa, they put it on Instagram, clipped and cut, set to a techno remix of Gaivota, and within days it was circulating through the city, Lisbon's own AI girl who thinks fado needs subtitles. My emails to startups went unanswered. Cabrina boys jeered as I biked across the square. Hey, Teresa, can your robot teach us to dance too? All I wanted was to disappear. I didn't. I left. I packed my backpack and what little savings I'd scraped together from tutoring and the university grant. I stopped looking back when the 28 tram crossed Largo de Camões. My mother hugged me too tightly at the bus station, half proud, half worried. Don't come back until you're ready, querida, she said, slipping a 50-euro note into my palm. Berlin swallowed me in late autumn. Damp streets, the taste of metal in the air. I slept in an attic with low ceilings and cycled to interviews in the rain. There were more no's than yeses, but eventually I got a contract at a grimy shared workspace full of cheap coffee and big dreams. The only Portuguese I heard was in my own head, which made me hoard memories of home tiles, codfish, the routine bitterness of Portuguese coffee, until my mouth ached. Instead of fado, I built voice bots for insurance companies. During the day, I wrote Python scripts that churned through claim forms. At night, my real code waited. I labored over the translation engine. I fed it heartbreak by the gigabyte. Fado lyrics, sound samples, voice modulation. I made mistakes. More often than not, my bot garbled titles and stripped the soul out of even the simplest verses. But every now and then, the pain in the strings made it through, and I felt a kind of serenity, like someone had finally seen the Lisbon I carried inside my chest. Years passed. Startups folded. Companies merged. I became irreplaceable in a hungry little firm that suddenly wanted to bet on culture. Someone's cousin at Google saw a demo. Someone's uncle at SoundCloud made introductions. We won a grant, then another. Each step was earned with stubbornness and sweat, and sometimes I felt the anger simmering back up, the kind that had kept me awake on dark trams, the fury at laughter echoing off crumbling walls back home. There was a day, nearly 6 years after that birthday, sitting in an airy Berlin office with ferns and wooden tables, when we were told, "You're going live in Lisbon next month. Huge exhibition in Praça do Comércio. Full media coverage. Your fado AI is the highlight." My breath caught, equal parts dread and serenity. I was finally going home, but all the old laughter seemed to stir like ghosts in the edges of my mind. My return wasn't the stuff of dreams. Nothing is. It rained. The taxi driver at the airport barely acknowledged me. I felt like a tourist navigating my own city, passing the pastel-painted houses and graffiti-tagged trams. My mother's hug was the only welcome that felt true, and even then, she whispered, "Everyone's talking about the exhibition." Lisbon had changed and hadn't. The tiled houses were shinier, there were more tourists, and the coffee in the corner cafe was still cheaper than water. Anna didn't call. Neither did my uncle. But their silence grew louder every day as posters went up around São Jorge, as the TV in every hairdresser's played the segment about Lisbon's daughter, bringing old music to new worlds. The big day arrived hot, even though it was meant to be late winter. Engineers hustled about in orange festival t-shirts, unpacking speakers and cables. Our booth was a simple tent set up under gold-painted arches just off the Praça's yellow facades. Across from us, a team demoed a crypto wallet. Further down, there was a VR surfing simulator. Ours looked almost primitive by comparison. A booth, 2 loudspeakers, and a black monitor flashing lines of lyrics as the bot sang in the style of old recordings. I spent the early hours adjusting code, testing samples. Nothing prepares you for the churn in your stomach when your work is about to play, live, in front of the city that rejected you. My hands were cold, even as the sun beat down. As the crowd thickened, I recognized faces, neighbors, old classmates, the baker's wife. There they were, Anna and her boyfriend, standing near the churro stand, arms crossed. My uncle in his battered navy cap, eating an orange slowly. I couldn't avoid them. I didn't bother. When the first set started, I let them see me. The AI sang Extraña forma de vida. The voice I'd trained for half a decade came out both haunting and human. Amalia's sadness carried out over the river, but in English, every syllable mapped so tightly to the original melody that you could still feel the ache of longing, even without speaking Portuguese. The lyrics scrolled in both languages. People followed the words with their fingers in the air. I watched my uncle's face, the scoff falling away. Anna's boyfriend, usually the loudest, had his mouth half open, speechless. The second track played, Con que voz, the pain in every syllable, rendered in a flat American accent by the bot first, then overlaid with a British lilt, and finally, softly, the original Portuguese. The AI shifted styles, following a prompt from my phone. People stopped walking. I saw a tourist couple, clutching guidebooks, start to cry. A child tugged at their father, whispering, "Is this magic?" Behind me, one of the judges said, "It feels like we're hearing the soul of Lisbon translated for the first time." I looked at Anna, expecting a glare, but saw instead a different kind of embarrassment. The sudden realization that you've been wrong for so long it's changed the shape of your mouth. My uncle took a hesitant step closer. "Teresa," he said, voice cracking. "How did you do this?" I told him the simple truth, by not listening when you laughed at me. He nodded once and said nothing more. But the pride glistened in his tired eyes. After the booth closed, the mayor's office sent over a camera crew. I answered questions in halting Portuguese, then English. Half my thoughts slid out in German despite myself. All I wanted was to go home and sleep, Let my mother's cooking warm the cold that had never quite left since Berlin. But first, Anna came up to me again. She hesitated, hugging her elbows. "You know I'm sorry, right? I didn't get it." None of us did. Her eyes shone, but I felt calm, even as the old anger sparkled. I shrugged. It stopped mattering. The work spoke for itself. She held my gaze, nodding silently. Later, as the sun set and tourists lingered by the river, my mother walked with me along Rua Augusta. "You always belonged here," she murmured, squeezing my hand, "even when they said you didn't." Lisbon watched, and this time it listened. The city's laughter had shifted. Where there had once been jeers, now there was a soft admiration, a careful pride, as if no one quite wanted to say they'd ever doubted me. In the weeks that followed, there were interviews and invitations. Schools wanted me to speak to girls about engineering. My old university offered to name a lecture after me, Teresa Diaz Auditorium. The tech world called with new titles, bigger offers, but every night, at least for a while, I returned to the tiny apartment where my mother waited, where the sun set golden over the tiled rooftops and the trams creaked home in the dusk. Sometimes I walked that old street, past the bakery, past Uncle's courtyard where the laughter once stung, and I heard the rumble of fado in the tavern on the corner. Sitting outside, I drank coffee, letting the anger and serenity settle alongside each other, like the roots and topsoil of these hills. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to choose between the two.